The shape of the container can be another clue visible at long range to indicate a vehicle carrying hazardous materials. As a last resort, you could use the road and rail car information chart in the white pages. As you get closer, you may be able to see only the color of a placard or other markings on the vehicle. So in cases where you can advance no further, you can still locate an orange guide for response instructions, even if you only have the vehicle shape or the color of the placard. Each advance towards the scene will add critical data points that will take you from an unknown situation towards an orange guide, which leads you to safety and corrective actions instructions.
The more thoroughly you understand how to use the Emergency Response Guidebook, the more you can significantly influence the successful outcome of an event. Your ability to assess the situation, identify the hazards, secure the scene, and begin using the ERG to inform your corrective action decisions after placing a call for assistance is imperative. If you see a placard with no words, there'll be a hazard class number at the bottom. Reference the placards page and then go to the corresponding orange guide for instructions. For a complete listing of hazard classes, see page 14 in the white pages. You may also occasionally see a double orange panel. The top is used on some intermodal bulk containers and is referred to as the hazard identification code, and below that is your 4-digit identification number. In a rescue situation, you must always weigh and measure risks before acting. Whenever possible, use binoculars to survey the hazard. The ERG will be your tool to assess those risks before rushing into a scene. The Emergency Response Guidebook is a guidance resource to approach and secure the incident safely, identify the level of hazard, and obtain help by calling in the incident according to your agency's protocols. In the absence of any information, placards, shipping papers, or container markings, you can always go to Guide 111, the very first guide in the orange pages. And only as a last resort, use the road and rail car information. When provided with a shipping paper from a transporter, find the product name and proceed to the blue pages in order to get to the orange guide. Remember, any knowledge the transporter may have could prove to be extremely helpful and save time. Throughout the blue and yellow pages, you'll notice many highlighted entries. These highlighted materials indicate that it's a toxic inhalation hazard, or a TIH. Once you realize you're dealing with a TIH material, the green pages will provide you with an annex to the table of initial isolation and protective action distances. When identifying the appropriate isolation zone for the nature of the TIH material you've encountered, pay close attention to notations regarding variables that influence the situation, whether it's day or night, the difference between a large or small spill, and wind direction. Also in the green pages, you'll find Table 2, which lists materials that produce TIH gases when spilled in water. The ramifications of quantity will greatly affect the isolation and evacuation distance guidance. Be aware that vapors may be channeled in valleys or buildings. Note also that all distances are given in meters, feet, kilometers, and miles. You should also be aware that in every orange guide, under the Public Safety heading, you'll find isolation and evacuation distances that correspond to that specific material. Know that the presence of fire in an incident involving a TIH material will possibly make toxicity factors a lower priority than fire or explosion potential. Pages 24 and 25 in the white pages cover products transported through pipelines. Pipelines are often buried. When this is the case, there are above-ground structures and signs indicating the presence of underground pipelines. Liquid pipelines carry crude oil, gasoline, diesel fuel, and jet fuel. Surface indicators of a liquid pipeline leak include liquids bubbling from the ground, oil slick on flowing or standing water, flames that appear to be coming from the ground, and vapor clouds. Gas pipelines carry natural gas. Surface indicators of a gas pipeline leak include a hissing, roaring, or blowing sound, dirt or water being blown in the air, continuous bubbling in wet or flooded areas, flames that appear to be coming from the ground, dead or brown vegetation in an otherwise green field, and, in winter, melted snow over the pipeline. These pages are your guide to responding correctly and safely. The notification sequence and requests for technical information beyond what's available in this guidebook should occur in the following order. Notify your dispatcher. If that's not an option, then locate and call the telephone number listed on the shipping paper. If you can't obtain the shipping paper, then contact the appropriate emergency response organization listed on the inside back cover of the guidebook. Keep in mind also that the white pages in the back provide additional resource information on protective clothing, fire and spill control, criminal terrorist use, chemical, biological, and radiological agents, a glossary of terminology where you can find definitions to names like previously mentioned polymerization, and finally, on the back inside cover, the emergency response telephone number listing.
Let's review. Resist rushing in. Position yourself upwind, uphill, or upstream from the hazard, and stay clear of all vapors, fumes, smoke, and spills. When arriving at the scene of an incident, you're expected to recognize the presence of hazardous materials. Any efforts made to rescue persons, property, or the environment must be weighed against the possibility that you could become part of the problem. Without entering the immediate hazard area, isolate and secure the area, protect yourself and the public, and above all, do not walk into or touch spilled material. Call for the assistance of trained personnel as soon as conditions permit. Previously, we've referenced Guide 111 when you're unable to discern a starting point. A major exception to this is when you suspect or know that explosives are involved. In those cases, immediately reference Guide 112. If an ID number or name of material cannot be found, but a placard is in sight, find the table of placards in the front white pages, match the placard, and use the guide number indicated. Then go to that orange guide and read the response instructions carefully.
If you find the shipping paper first, you'll locate the name of the product in the appropriate area. The blue pages are alphabetical by product name. Directly beside the name will be your orange guide number. If the placard is visible and you can locate the ID number in the center, then go to the numerical listing in the yellow pages. Reference the appropriate orange guide number that the material has highlighted. The orange guide and green pages will inform you on protective actions due to the TIH hazard. In the case of a double orange panel, remember that the top number is the hazard identification code, which identifies the hazard class of the material, and the bottom number is your 4-digit identification number. When a single orange panel is present, it will contain the 4-digit identification number. The Emergency Response Guidebook is designed for you, the emergency responder. It's one of your most powerful resources to protect and save lives when called to an event involving hazardous materials. How you react in the first few minutes of an incident can set the stage for the entire outcome of the event, including the risk factors to yourself, the victims who need your aid, and the surrounding public. If used effectively, the ERG will help you quickly interpret the hazard information and give you corrective action steps to influence a successful outcome. Fortunately, our nation has a hazard communication framework designed to support you when you're the first to arrive on a hazmat incident. By understanding the system of placards, labels, and shipping papers, and their role in the Emergency Response Guidebook, you can make a successful outcome a reality.